This is week 49. We are going to talk about capacity planning when it comes to growth strategies. So this is the third part of the growth strategies series, weeks 47, 48. Julie covered, and we are now into week 49 with the growth strategies. Two different parts in this. We're going to know what your current capacity is, and we're going to talk about planning for growth. So let's get into identifying what your current capacity is. So I'm going to start this off with a story about a restaurant that I used to manage, and this was years ago. So this was 2005 to 2009. I managed this restaurant, and the owner kept adding more tables, and he would, squeeze another table in here, squeeze another table in there. And he and I used to get into some arguments about what our actual capacity was because he wanted to maximize, which, understandably wanted to make more money. But I, flat out told him, I was like, there is only so much product that we can store, that that we can prep, that we can put out, and we're going to have to expand in some way, shape, or form. Didn't happen on my watch, but years later they expanded the kitchen, they expanded storage. I am jealous about what they're working with now, considering what I had to put up with. But how did we get around it? Well, we first came up with, on like busy weekends, I created a whole new shift. We called it Ghost Watch. So this restaurant was in an old church, and supposedly it was haunted. I have no idea. I never witnessed anything myself, but from on the busy weekends, so like graduation weekend or whatever, we would have from Thursday through Sunday, we would be pretty much packed out the entire time. And at about 1 a.m, when we're closing down the bar, I'd actually have kitchen shift come in for Ghost Watch, and they would prep from about 1 a.m. to 8 a.m. or so until the next shift came in, and then they would go home, take a nap, and then they'd probably come back the next night. We made it work, but we learned it the hard way. There were people prepping all over the place, and I knew what our capacity was. We pushed the limits. We were able to make it work, but that's not the way to do things. So knowing what your capacity is, first you want to identify what your current bottlenecks are, and they're only going to get more backed up as you grow. So for us, it was we just simply didn't have enough room to store people, to store food. We didn't have enough room for people to slice and prep and do all of that. So that's one of the things that we needed to address, and we got a little bit better as the years went on in terms of prepping things ahead of time and getting ahead of the work for the kitchen. But there's only so much that we could do. There's only so much that we could sell. Look at your hours and how they're allocated or best being used. So for us, this was, we had downtime between essentially 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. where nobody was in the building. So we filled it with people. You need to know how much of the work that you're doing is FaceTime with customers or clients, how much of this work has to be done during your normal business hours, and what can you automate? What is currently being automated, what's available, and what can you automate? What are you doing that's not value added? So this is, doing some of that work that is like we talked about in week 34 is the stuff that you can eliminate, that you can automate, that you can outsource, especially if it doesn't cost much to do so. Again, looking at downtime for employees, who has the downtime? When do they have the downtime? You might be able to coordinate some things to maximize everybody's time in your business based upon where the handoffs are, et cetera. If you add more employees, that might help. That might put too many chefs in the kitchen, and they might get in the way. So you have to think about that. Again, go back to your off hours. Is there anything that you can do, outside of business hours that can be automated, or something that you don't need to necessarily have somebody on the clock doing that? And then think about cross training as well. Cross training is helpful because as certain, handoffs happen, people can essentially hand it off to themselves, and they can do that job as well. And they're not waiting on somebody else to pick it up. You want to assess your physical capacity. So, the actual storage that you have in whatever your facility is, like where you produce. Working from home is pretty obvious by now that there's certain people that they don't need to come into the office. I mean, they might want to, and that's fine, because you got to think about, the human element of your business. But if they don't need to be in there, if they can work from home and be as productive, do it. And then lastly, just, push your staff, give them some motivation to work more to produce more. You don't want to just crack the whip and have them like work harder. You want to give them that motivation of, if you complete X, you're already here. And, if you get to this next level, bonuses, raises, that type of stuff. Be transparent with your team in terms of financial goals and all that. And then, make sure to properly compensate them if they hit them. So that's it for section 1 of week 49. And section 2, we're going to talk about planning for that growth.